Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm so thrilled to have all of you focused learners here with us because today we are setting the stage for a massive, game-changing paradigm shift. We're going to completely rethink how we approach our daily work. We'll be zeroing in on the absolutely crucial difference between just merely finishing a task and actually delivering a successful outcome. We're going to break down exactly what separates the people who just show up from the people who completely dominate their fields. So, let this question really sink in for a second. Why do some people succeed while others just work hard? We've all felt the frustration of the daily grind, right? You put in the hours, you check off all the boxes on your to-do list, your head hits the pillow, and yet you don't really seem to be advancing. It's a harsh reality, but sheer hard work doesn't always equal upward mobility. But the source material we're unpacking today reveals something huge. The gap between staying stagnant and achieving massive success. It isn't about working more hours. It's entirely about a fundamental shift in your mindset. Okay, let's dive into this. The text outlines 5 foundational steps, basically the secret habits used by highly successful people and billionaires to build unshakable mental resilience. First, it starts internally. You have to cultivate a highly resilient mindset to overcome the daily anxiety and self-doubt that, naturally creeps in for all of us. You have to commit to continuous self-improvement. But the magic really happens in those last 2 points, thinking beyond the immediate task at hand and relentlessly focusing on the ultimate goal. As we'll see, the most successful people aren't just looking at what's right in front of them. They are actively visualizing the final completed reality. To really capture this internal foundation, we have this incredibly powerful philosophy from CK Fastwork: win or give up before winning. I absolutely love this. It just completely reframes how we look at failure. True success starts internally. According to this framework, the only way you truly fail is if you actively choose to quit before you reach the finish line. If you haven't given up, well, you're simply still in the process of winning. That is exactly the kind of resilient mindset required to push past the ordinary. But here's the catch. This internal grit, this refusal to give up before you win, it has to translate directly into the physical world. It can't just stay a nice, inspiring thought in your head. It has to fundamentally change the way you execute your daily tasks. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back from a bad day. It's the actual engine that drives how you handle a project, how you talk to your clients, and how you deliver results to your manager. It literally redefines your workflow. In our source material, this idea is beautifully summarized by a really stark contrast. On one side, we have a task that is simply done. On the other, we have an outcome that is truly successful. And let me tell you, there is a massive, career-defining difference between merely finishing a task because you were told to and actually driving that task forward until a successful outcome is achieved. Let's break down exactly what it means to operate on that done side of the spectrum. Being done basically means completing the initial instructions and then just stopping. You fulfill your basic duty, you check the box, but you never actually confirm the final result. For example, if your boss asks you to send an email, you send it. But you don't check if the client received it, or if they replied, or if the actual issue was resolved. You've done the bare minimum. You've essentially passed the buck and the resulting headache right back to your manager. Now contrast this immediately with being successful. Operating with this mindset means you take absolute, unyielding ownership of the task. You are verifying details without even being asked. If there's a discrepancy, you manage it. You don't stop working until you can absolutely guarantee the target is achieved. The task isn't off your plate when you finish your little part. The task is off your plate when the actual goal becomes a reality. Part 1. The Secretary Test, a real-world office scenario. To make these abstract concepts crystal clear, our sources provide a highly relatable, everyday office scenario. It's a great way to see which side of the paradigm you might be operating on. Imagine a boss asks their secretary to set up a meeting with a client. The done secretary springs into action. First, they ask the client for their availability. The client says, "I'm free next Tuesday." The secretary relays this exact answer back to the boss, and then they just wait passively for further instructions. Do you see the frustrating loop here? The secretary did exactly what was asked, but the meeting isn't actually booked. The boss now has to sigh, pick up the phone, and say, "Okay, book them for 2 p.m., which just creates more unnecessary work and mental load for the leader.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast when we look at the successful secretary. Same exact request from the boss, but look at these proactive steps. They don't just ask for availability, they confirm the exact date and time with the client. Then, without even being asked, they send maps and logistical details proactively. On the actual day of the meeting, they call to reconfirm. And finally, they stand by to ensure the appointment goes flawlessly. They completely own the appointment process from start to finish. The boss just asked for a meeting, and this secretary guaranteed that meeting happened seamlessly.
When you look at it through that lens, it is completely obvious why managers and entrepreneurs will instantly promote and champion the successful worker. Operating with this elevated, outcome-oriented mindset entirely eliminates the burden of micromanagement. I mean, instructions only need to be given once. It builds exponentially higher trust and reliability, saves massive amounts of time, and totally eradicates redundant back-and-forth communication. You aren't just an employee at that point. You are an incredibly valuable asset. Part 2. The blueprint, mastering the final outcome. So, we know the difference, and we understand why it's so incredibly valuable. Now, let's talk application. Drawn directly from our source material, here are the 4 actionable steps that guarantee a task isn't just finished, but flawlessly executed. Step 1. Set clearly defined ultimate outcomes before you even begin. Step 2. Anticipate and plan for future obstacles. Step 3. Overcommunicate essential details. And Step 4. Take absolute ownership of the final results. Let's break down exactly how you can implement these starting today. Emphasizing those first 2 steps, you really have to train yourself to ask, what is the true goal here, and when must it be realized? Defining the actual target before starting is absolutely non-negotiable. If you don't know what the true finish line looks like, you'll inevitably stop halfway. And because you know exactly what that finish line is, you can start preparing backup plans for the inevitable roadblocks. You think ahead. You ask yourself, if this client doesn't pick up the phone, what is my next move? You never get caught flat-footed. Now, a critical rule for step 3 is over-communicating. A truly successful worker never, ever brings a raw problem to their boss without also bringing a potential fix. If something goes wrong, you don't just report it and wait to be saved. You say, here's the issue, and here are 2 solutions I've mapped out to resolve it. You communicate proactively. You send checklists in advance. You actively manage the situation. Now, what's really interesting to look at here is the striking impact of this mindset shift. When you operate as a done worker, your manager has to follow up with you almost constantly, like 90% of the time, just to make sure the loop actually gets closed. But when you adopt the successful worker blueprint, when you take absolute ownership, that need for annoying managerial follow-ups drops to absolute zero. You literally become a self-sustaining force of execution. Which brings us to one incredibly powerful metric. 1. The ultimate hallmark of a highly successful employee, the trait that leaders look for above almost anything else, is that they only need to be told something exactly one time. Just once. They grasp the ultimate goal, they take ownership, and they make it happen. They transform instructions into reality with a single prompt. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative final question. I want you to look at your to-do list for tomorrow. Look at the projects you're handling right now and ask yourself with total honesty, are your tasks just done or are they successful? Which paradigm are you going to choose to operate under tomorrow? Remember, true success doesn't come from just working hard. It comes from taking ownership of the final outcome. Until next time, keep learning, keep pushing, and go make it successful.